You've worn sunscreen your whole life. You've read the bottles, followed the rules, trusted what you were told. But what if some of what you believe about protecting your skin is quietly, fundamentally wrong? What if the habits you count on are leaving you exposed in ways you never imagined? The sun doesn't announce its damage. It works in silence, invisibly, rewriting your skin one cell at a time. Sunlight feels like kindness. It warms your face on a cool morning. It turns an ordinary afternoon golden. For most of human history, people lived under the sun without worry, without understanding what was really happening beneath the surface. But we know now what they could not see. Hidden inside that warmth is a form of energy, so small it slips through the air unseen. It passes through clouds. It even passes through glass. And when it reaches your skin, it doesn't just touch the surface. It goes deeper. It reaches living cells. And it changes them. This invisible energy is called ultraviolet radiation. Scientists divide it into 3 types. UVC is the most powerful. But the atmosphere blocks it completely before it ever reaches us. UVB is the kind that burns your skin red after a day outside. It damages the outer layer directly and, over time, contributes to skin cancer. Then there's UVA. This one works quietly. It doesn't burn fast. Instead, it penetrates into the dermis, the deeper layer where collagen lives, where the structure of your skin is held together. UVA ages you. It creates wrinkles and dark spots, damage that builds silently over decades. And here's what catches most people off guard: UVA is present all day long, every season. Even when the sky is gray. It doesn't weaken in winter. It doesn't take days off. It's constant. That's why sunscreen exists. Not as a luxury, but as a shield. It's designed to absorb or reflect ultraviolet radiation before it can reach the living cells of your skin. But despite how common sunscreen has become, most people use it incorrectly. Not because they don't care, but because they've been taught myths. Small misunderstandings that seem harmless, but leave skin vulnerable in very real ways. There are 10 of these myths that matter most. 10 beliefs that millions of people hold without question. And each one leaves your skin a little less protected than you think. Number 1. The 30-minute rule. Many people believe they must apply sunscreen 30 minutes before stepping outside. They've heard it so often it sounds like scientific law. They stand in front of the mirror, rub it into their skin, then wait. They check the clock. They make sure half an hour passes before they open the door. And they believe they're doing everything right. But they're not. This rule is outdated. It comes from older chemical sunscreens that needed time to bind with the skin's outer layer before they could start working. Those products did require a waiting period. But most modern sunscreens, especially physical ones, containing zinc oxide or titanium dioxide, work immediately. The moment you apply them, they begin reflecting ultraviolet light. There's no activation time, no waiting necessary. You can put it on and walk outside right away. The protection is instant. So where did this myth begin? Partly from well-meaning advice that got oversimplified. Dermatologists wanted people to apply sunscreen early enough that they wouldn't forget. They wanted it to become routine. Something done before getting dressed, before leaving the house. But that guidance twisted into a rule about chemistry. And now people think the sunscreen itself needs time to soak in or activate. It doesn't. What truly matters is coverage. Making sure every exposed area is protected. And that the layer is thick enough to do its job. If you're using a chemical sunscreen, yes, applying it a few minutes beforehand helps it settle. But 30 minutes? That's unnecessary. And if you're using a mineral sunscreen, you're protected the second it touches your skin. Here's the real takeaway. Don't let the 30-minute myth stop you from reapplying when you need to. If you're already outside and realize you forgot sunscreen, put it on immediately. Waiting won't help. The damage is happening right now. Every unprotected minute adds up. Number 2. The SPF number game. You see them on every bottle. SPF 15, SPF 30, SPF 50, SPF 100. The numbers climb higher every year, and it's natural to assume that SPF 100 must protect twice. as well as SPF 50. The math seems obvious, but that's not how it works. SPF stands for Sun Protection Factor, and it measures how much UVB radiation gets blocked. SPF 30 blocks about 97% of UVB rays. SPF 50 blocks about 98%. SPF 100 blocks about 99%. The difference between 50 and 100 is just one single percentage point, yet people pay more for that higher number. They think they're getting double protection. They think they can stay in the sun twice as long. They can't. The real problem isn't the number on the bottle. It's how much sunscreen people actually apply. Most people use about half the amount they should. They rub a thin layer over their skin, barely visible, and assume they're covered. But SPF ratings are tested using 2 mg per square centimeter of skin. That's a thick, noticeable layer. If you're only applying half that amount, you're not getting SPF 50. You're getting something closer to SPF 25, maybe less. So instead of chasing higher numbers, focus on applying enough. About 1 full ounce for your whole body. That's roughly a shot glass worth. And reapply every 2 hours, or after swimming or sweating heavily. That's what truly protects you, not the number printed on the packaging. Number 3. The indoor safety illusion. Another myth quietly affects millions of people every single day. The belief that sunscreen isn't needed indoors. It makes perfect sense at first glance. You're inside. The sun isn't directly touching you. Why would you need protection? But here's the problem most people miss. Glass blocks UVB, the kind that causes sunburn, but it doesn't block UVA. UVA passes straight through windows. It streams into your home, your car, your office. If you sit near a window for hours each day, you're being exposed. Not to the full intensity of outdoor sunlight, but to a steady, cumulative dose of UVA radiation. And remember, UVA is the one that ages. It's the one that breaks down collagen and creates those fine lines that seem to appear from nowhere. There's a well-documented case that illustrates this perfectly. A truck driver spent 28 years on the road. Every day, the left side of his face was positioned near the window. The right side stayed in shadow. When doctors examined him, the difference was striking. The left side of his face looked decades older. Deeper wrinkles, thicker, more weathered skin. Far more visible sun damage. The right side looked normal for his age. Same person, same genetics, same lifestyle. The only difference was the window. That's the silent power of UVA. It doesn't shout. It doesn't burn dramatically. It just changes you slowly, steadily, over time. So if you work near a window, if you spend hours driving, if your living room is filled with natural light streaming through glass, consider wearing sunscreen indoors on those days. Not necessarily every single day, but when you're getting significant exposure. Or use window films that block UVA radiation. They exist. They're affordable, and they work remarkably well. Number 4. The artificial light worry. Now, some people worry about artificial indoor lighting. They've read online that fluorescent bulbs or LED lights might damage skin the same way the sun does. This myth has gained traction, especially in wellness communities. But it's not supported by evidence. Fluorescent lights do emit a tiny amount of UV radiation, but it's so minimal that scientists consider it negligible. Studies have measured the exposure carefully. Even if you sat directly under a fluorescent bulb for 8 hours every day, the amount of UV radiation you'd receive is far less than just a few minutes of actual sunlight. LED lights emit even less. Essentially none. They don't produce ultraviolet radiation in any meaningful amount. So no, your office lighting is not aging your skin. Your desk lamp is not giving you wrinkles. You don't need to wear sunscreen because of indoor lighting. Save it for actual sun exposure. Number 5. The clothing protection myth. Many people assume that any piece of fabric blocks the sun completely. They wear a t-shirt or a light cotton dress and think they're fully covered. And yes, clothing does provide some protection. But not all fabrics are created equal. A white cotton t-shirt has an estimated UPF rating, that's ultraviolet protection factor, of about 5 to 7. That means it blocks only 80 to 86% of UV radiation. The rest gets through. If the fabric is wet, the protection drops even further. If it's stretched thin, even more radiation passes through. Dark colors block better than light colors. Tight weaves block better than loose ones. Synthetic fabrics like polyester often block better than natural ones like cotton. And then there are specially designed UPF clothing items, rated UPF 50+, that block more than 98% of UV rays. These are ideal for long days, outdoors, for hiking, for anyone spending extended time in the sun. The point is simple: don't assume your clothes are enough. If you're wearing a thin white shirt on a sunny day, you should still apply sunscreen underneath. Especially on your shoulders and upper back. Clothing helps, but it's not a guarantee. It's one layer of protection, not the only one you need. Number 6. The shade safety assumption. Sitting under an umbrella at the beach feels safe. The sun isn't directly on you. You're cooler, you're comfortable, but you're still being exposed to ultraviolet radiation. UV doesn't only come from directly overhead. It reflects off surfaces all around you. Sand reflects up to 25% of UV rays. Water reflects even more, sometimes up to 30%. Snow reflects up to a staggering 80%. So even in shade, even under an umbrella, reflected light is reaching your skin from multiple angles. You're getting a significant dose of ultraviolet radiation without realizing it. That's why people sometimes get sunburned on cloudy days, or while sitting in shade. They think they're protected. They let their guard down, and the sun finds them anyway. Here's the truth: shade reduces your exposure, sometimes by 50% or more. But it doesn't eliminate it. If you're spending the day outside, you still need sunscreen. Even if you're under a tree, under an umbrella, or sitting on a covered porch. The sky itself scatters UV light in all directions. There's no such thing as perfect shade outdoors. Think of shade as helpful, but not complete. It's part of your protection strategy, not the entire strategy. Number 7. The cloudy day misconception. This is one of the most dangerous myths out there. Many people believe you don't need sunscreen on overcast days. Clouds do block some sunlight. Thick storm clouds can reduce UV radiation by 70 or 80%. But most clouds, the kind you see on a typical gray day, only block about 20 to 30%. The rest gets through. UVA, especially, passes through clouds almost unhindered. So on a cloudy day, you might not feel the heat. You might not see the sun clearly. But your skin is still being exposed to ultraviolet radiation, at levels high enough to cause damage. And because you don't feel the burn developing, because you don't see redness until later, you often stay outside longer than you would on a sunny day. You don't reapply. You don't think about protection. And by the end of the day, the damage is done. Some of the worst sunburns happen on cloudy days. Not because the sun is stronger, but because people's behavior changes. They assume they're safe. They skip the sunscreen entirely. They stay outside for hours gardening, walking, playing with children. And the UV radiation, invisible and patient, does its work without interruption. So here's the rule that matters. If it's daytime, if the sun is somewhere above the horizon, even if you can't see it clearly, wear sunscreen. It doesn't matter if it's cloudy. It doesn't matter if it's winter. UV radiation is present, and your skin remains vulnerable. Number 8. The makeup with SPF trap. Many foundations, powders, and tinted moisturizers now include SPF protection. It's convenient, it's easy, and it makes people feel like they're covering 2 steps at once. Skincare and sun protection in a single product. But here's the problem that dermatologists see constantly. Makeup with SPF is rarely applied thickly enough to provide the protection advertised on the label. When scientists test SPF ratings, they use 2 milligrams per square centimeter of skin. That's a substantial amount. But when people apply foundation, they use a thin, even layer. Just enough to smooth the skin tone. Just enough to look natural and feel comfortable. That means the actual SPF protection they're getting is much lower than what's printed on the bottle. Maybe SPF 10. Maybe SPF 15. Not the SPF 30 or 50 the product claims. And there's another issue that's equally important. Makeup is usually only applied to the face. But sun damage happens everywhere the sun touches. The neck, the chest, the hands, the ears, the back of the neck. These areas are often completely forgotten, and over time, they show the most obvious signs of aging and sun damage. So relying on makeup with SPF is a bit like wearing a seatbelt. That only covers part of your body. It helps somewhat, but it's nowhere near enough. If you love your SPF makeup, that's perfectly fine. Use it, but don't let it replace actual sunscreen. Apply a full layer of dedicated sunscreen first, let it settle for a minute. Then apply your makeup on top. That way, you're truly protected where it counts. Number 9. The sunscreen aging myth. There's another belief that deserves serious attention. And this one has real consequences for people's health. Some believe that sunscreen itself accelerates skin aging. They've read articles online claiming that the chemicals in sunscreen are toxic. That they disrupt hormones, that they cause more harm than the sun ever could. And so they avoid sunscreen entirely. They choose to go unprotected, thinking they're making the healthier, more natural choice. But this belief is built on misunderstanding and unfounded fear, not on actual science. Yes, sunscreen contains chemicals. But everything is made of chemicals. Water is a chemical. Oxygen is a chemical. The word itself doesn't mean dangerous or harmful. What matters is whether those chemicals, in the amounts used and the ways they're applied, actually cause harm to human health. And the overwhelming body of scientific research says they don't. Sunscreen ingredients are among the most extensively studied compounds in all of dermatology. Oxybenzone, avobenzone, octinazate, these are the ones people worry about most. Studies have shown that small amounts can be absorbed into the bloodstream when applied to skin. But absorption doesn't automatically equal harm. Your body absorbs countless substances every single day. The critical question is whether they cause actual damage. And in the case of sunscreen ingredients, decades of research and real-world use show that they don't. There's no credible scientific evidence linking proper sunscreen use to cancer, hormone disruption, or premature aging. None. What we do have overwhelming evidence for is this. Ultraviolet radiation causes skin cancer. It causes melanoma, the deadliest form. It causes basal cell carcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma. It damages DNA directly. It creates genetic mutations. It accelerates aging in ways that are both visible and measurable under microscopes. Wrinkles, age spots, loss of elasticity, leathery texture, all of these are directly caused by cumulative sun exposure. And sunscreen prevents them, not perfectly, but significantly and measurably. People who use sunscreen regularly have visibly younger looking skin than those who don't. They have lower rates of all types of skin cancer. They have fewer precancerous lesions. The scientific evidence is clear and consistent. Sunscreen protects. So where did this harmful myth originate? Partly from a misunderstanding of coral reef studies. Some sunscreen ingredients, particularly oxybenzone, have been shown to harm coral in specific laboratory conditions. Hawaii and other regions have banned certain sunscreens to protect fragile marine ecosystems. That's a valid environmental concern that deserves attention. But it doesn't mean those ingredients harm human skin. The dose, the exposure pathway, the biological context, all of it is fundamentally different. If you're concerned about coral reefs, and you should be, choose mineral sunscreens with zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. They're considered reef safe, and they're just as effective at protecting human skin. But don't let environmental debates convince you that sunscreen is aging your skin or poisoning your body. It's not. The sun's ultraviolet radiation is what ages and damages. Sunscreen is what protects. Number 10. The vitamin D deficiency fear. Finally, let's address one of the most persistent myths of all. The widespread belief that sunscreen causes vitamin D deficiency. This one is particularly tricky, because it contains a small kernel of truth that gets distorted. Vitamin D is produced in your skin. When it's exposed to UVB radiation from sunlight, sunscreen blocks UVB rays. So logically, wearing sunscreen should reduce vitamin D production in the skin. And technically, in controlled laboratory conditions, it does. But here's what the actual real-world research shows. In practice, in everyday life, people who wear sunscreen regularly do not have lower vitamin D levels than people who don't wear it. This seems contradictory at first, but the reasons are straightforward. No one applies sunscreen perfectly. People miss spots. They don't reapply as often as they should. They don't use thick enough layers. They forget their ears, their hands, the back of their neck. And even a small amount of sun exposure, just a few minutes a day on the hands and face, is typically enough for the body to produce adequate vitamin D. The human body is remarkably efficient at this process. You don't need to sunbathe. You don't need to deliberately expose large areas of unprotected skin for extended periods. The other critical factor is diet and supplementation. Vitamin D isn't only made in the skin. It's naturally found in foods. Fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines. Fortified milk and plant milks. Fortified cereals. Egg yolks. Mushrooms exposed to UV light. Most people in developed countries get at least some vitamin D from their regular diet. And if you're concerned about your levels, a simple, inexpensive blood test can tell you exactly where you stand. If you're deficient, and some people are for various reasons unrelated to sunscreen, your doctor can recommend an appropriate supplement. It's easy, it's safe, it's effective, and it doesn't require you to expose your skin to cancer-causing radiation. The idea that you need to skip sunscreen for your health is not supported by dermatologists, oncologists, or public health organizations anywhere in the world. The risks of unprotected sun exposure, skin cancer, DNA damage, premature aging, far outweigh the minimal theoretical risk of vitamin D deficiency from proper sunscreen use. And again, if you're genuinely worried about vitamin D, there are much safer ways to maintain healthy levels. Take a supplement. Eat fortified foods. Get your levels checked. Don't gamble with your skin's health based on a myth. So those are the 10 myths. 10 widely believed ideas that leave millions of people less protected than they think. But knowing the myths isn't enough. What matters now is what you do with this knowledge. Because the truth about sun protection is simpler than you might think. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency. It's about understanding what actually works and making it part of your routine. Use enough sunscreen. A full ounce for your body. Reapply every 2 hours when you're outside. Don't skip it on cloudy days. Don't assume shade or clothing alone is sufficient. Don't rely on makeup with SPF as your only protection. And don't let myths and misinformation guide your decisions. Let evidence guide them, let science guide them, and let the understanding that your skin is irreplaceable remind you that it deserves consistent, thoughtful care. Your skin has been with you since the very beginning. It's protected you from the outside world every single day of your life. It's healed your cuts and scrapes. It's regulated your temperature. It's sensed every touch, every breeze, every moment of warmth. And in return, all it asks is that you protect it from the one thing it cannot fully defend against on its own. Invisible ultraviolet radiation. You don't have to fear the sun. You don't have to avoid it or hide from it. You just have to respect it. Understand what it can do. Understand how to protect yourself intelligently. And make that protection a habit. Something automatic, not an afterthought you remember only on beach days. Because the choices you make today will show up on your skin decades from now. And when they do, you'll either be grateful for the care you took, or you'll wish you had started sooner. If this helped you see sunlight and sun protection a little differently, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you found real value here, a quick like helps others discover this information too. Subscribe if you want more science that actually matters. Delivered clearly, without the hype. We'll be here.